In the small town of Oak Ridge, Alabama, people lived in fear. It was 1964. The civil rights movement was growing, but Oak Ridge was stuck in the past. The Ku Klux Klan still controlled the streets at night. People locked their doors early. Black families kept their heads down. Speaking out was dangerous. But not everyone was afraid. Malcolm Hayes was different. He was tall, with strong shoulders and quiet eyes. He ran a small car repair shop on the edge of town. He didn't talk much. He didn't smile much either. But when he spoke, people listened. His hands were always busy fixing engines, welding metal, or helping neighbors for free. He wasn't a rich man. But he was respected. Some said feared. No one knew where he came from. He just showed up one summer 5 years ago, bought an old garage, and made it his own. He worked hard, minded his business, and helped the black community when no one else would. The KKK didn't like that. One quiet night, just past midnight, Malcolm heard a noise outside his shop. He stepped out and saw it. A burning cross, tall and red with flames, stood in front of his garage. 3 white-robed men stood near it, faces covered with hoods. One held a gas can. Another had a rope. They didn't say a word. They didn't have to. Most people would run. But Malcolm didn't move. He looked at the cross, then at the men. Then he reached into his pocket, and pulled out a cigarette. He lit it slowly, took a deep breath, and said, "I think y'all got the wrong address." The men froze. They were waiting for fear. They didn't find any. Malcolm walked forward right past the fire until he was standing just 10 feet from them. He blew out smoke. "I fix engines. Not hearts," he said. "Y'all broken. Can't help you." No one spoke. Then Malcolm flicked his cigarette into the dirt, turned around, and walked back inside. The next morning, the whole black neighborhood was talking. Did you hear what Malcolm did? He looked the Klan in the eyes. He didn't even blink. Some were proud. Others were scared. They worried the Klan would come back. And this time, with more men. But Malcolm wasn't worried. That day, he worked like usual, changing tires, fixing brakes, and giving a kid a free oil change. A young boy named Jalen watched from the edge of the shop. "Mr. Malcolm," he asked, "aren't you scared?" Malcolm smiled for the first time that day. "I've been scared before," he said. "But fear don't fix nothing." 3 nights later, a stranger arrived in town. He sat alone in a diner, sipping black coffee. He wore a brown coat and had a notebook in his hand. He asked the waitress, "You ever hear of a man named Malcolm Hayes?" The waitress, an older black woman named Miss Lottie, nodded. "Everybody knows Malcolm," she said. "He's the man who made the Klan nervous." The stranger raised an eyebrow. "I thought that was just a story." Miss Lottie leaned closer. "Son, in this town, stories are warnings." The stranger closed his notebook slowly. "What kind of man is he?" Miss Lottie didn't smile. She just said, "The kind of man who don't kneel." Later that week, Malcolm went to church on a Sunday morning. The preacher paused the sermon halfway and asked everyone to bow their heads in prayer for safety. "We know the danger," he said. "We know they watch. But we also know God watches too." When the service ended, Malcolm stayed behind to help repair the back door. Someone had broken it last week. No one said who, but everyone knew. As he hammered the frame back into place, a small white envelope slid under the church door. Inside it was a note. "You have 3 days. Leave, or burn. The Klan." Malcolm read it. Folded it. Put it in his pocket. He didn't tell anyone. Instead, he went back to his shop and started building something. Not a weapon. Not a trap. He was building a stand. A strong wooden stand. That evening, Jalen came by again. "Why are you building that?" he asked. Malcolm looked at the stand. "It's for the church," he said. "To hold up the new sign." "What sign?" Malcolm turned the wooden plank over. Painted in black letters were the words, "Fear ends here." As the sun set, people saw Malcolm standing outside, painting slowly, calmly. And just across the street, a white truck parked in the shadows. Inside were two men in white hoods. One of them asked, "Why won't he leave?" The other replied, "Because he ain't like the others." The first man frowned. "Then maybe it's time to show him what fear looks like." The truck started. The engine roared. But inside his shop, Malcolm was already waiting. The night after the warning note, Malcolm didn't sleep. He didn't run. He didn't hide. Instead, he sat on his porch, looking up at the stars, holding his father's old medal, worn, scratched, but shining under the moonlight. It was a bronze star from World War II. His father, Thomas Hayes, had fought in Europe. He saved a squad of white soldiers, even though he couldn't drink from the same water fountain as them when he returned home. Malcolm never forgot that. His father's last words to him were, "Son, fight smart, but never kneel." The next morning, Malcolm opened the garage like always. But this time, he wasn't alone. More people were watching now. Young men. Old women. Families. They stood nearby. Quiet. Curious. Some scared. Jalen's mother, a nurse named Darla, stepped up. "Malcolm, we can help. You don't have to face them alone." Malcolm shook his head. "I'm not trying to fight them," he said. "I'm trying to stand long enough, so others don't have to." That day, Emily Carter walked into his garage. She was white, blonde, blue eyes, and bold. She was also the mayor's daughter. People stared when she walked in. "I heard what happened," she said. "My father says you're making trouble." Malcolm didn't stop working. He was fixing a radiator. "I'm fixing engines." "That ain't trouble," he replied. Emily smiled. "You're fixing more than that." She placed a brown paper bag on his counter. "Food. For the church families. Some folks care. Even if they can't say it out loud." Malcolm nodded. Before she left, she paused at the door. "My grandma told me something once," she said. "She said the devil don't fear bullets. He fears brave hearts." That night, Malcolm stayed late at the garage. He worked under the lights, welding metal quietly. But nearby, in the shadows, the white truck came back. Inside were four hooded men this time. One held a bat. One had a rope again. But Malcolm didn't flinch. He walked out holding a mug of coffee and nodded toward them. "You boys want something fixed?" he asked. "Or just here to breathe heavy?" They didn't answer. He sipped his coffee. "Calm. Cold." Then one man shouted, "You got 2 days left, boy." Malcolm stared. "I ain't a boy. But thanks for the countdown." The next morning, Malcolm visited the local high school. He spoke with the black principal, Mr. Avery. "I need something from your media room," he said. Within hours, Malcolm had set up 2 hidden cameras outside his shop and near the church. He borrowed an old tape recorder and connected it to a microphone hidden near the front door. He wasn't just waiting. He was preparing. At the same time, the sheriff came knocking. Sheriff Ray Beckett was a tall, aging man with tired eyes and a badge that had seen too much. "Malcolm," he said, "you're stirring the pot." Malcolm leaned against the wall. "I'm just standing still, Sheriff." "The pot stirs itself." The sheriff sighed. "Look, I can't protect you if you won't help yourself. These men, this isn't a fair fight. Malcolm replied, was it fair when they burned down the church? When they hit my friend's son with chains last year? Silence. I didn't think so, Malcolm said. The sheriff looked down, embarrassed. You want me to leave? Malcolm asked. The sheriff paused. If I were you, maybe. Malcolm's voice dropped. Well, you ain't me. That night, something changed. The community came alive. People showed up at the church to fix windows, repaint walls, and plant flowers. Even some white neighbors showed up quietly, silent, nervous, but present. Miss Lottie from the diner brought pies. Jalen helped carry tools. Darla helped older ladies paint signs that read, "We will not burn." And Malcolm? He kept working, watching, recording, waiting. He knew they would come again. That evening, Jalen sat beside him on the garage steps. "Mr. Malcolm," he said, "are you scared now?" Malcolm looked out at the sunset. "My granddaddy said something once," he said. He said, "Courage isn't the fire inside you. It's the match you strike when the world goes dark." Jalen looked confused. Malcolm smiled. "You'll understand when you need to." Then he handed the boy a small silver wrench. "For you," he said. "Fix what you can. And never kneel." The clock was ticking. One day left. The clan was planning something. Everyone could feel it. But this time, the town was watching too. And Malcolm was ready. The town of Oak Ridge was breathing heavy. Everyone could feel it. Something bad was coming. Something soon. The sun had barely risen, but Malcolm Hayes was already at work. His garage doors were open, music played softly on an old radio, and his tools were lined up like soldiers. But he wasn't fixing cars today. He was fixing something bigger: his community's courage. Inside his office, tapes rolled quietly. The hidden microphone outside had already caught voices in the dark. Friday night, one voice whispered, "Gasoline and ropes. We scare him, then burn it down." Malcolm didn't blink as he listened. Instead, he labeled the tape carefully. KKK plan, recorded 2 a.m. He placed it in a metal box under his desk. Then came the knock. Sheriff Ray Beckett stepped in. His boots were dusty. His face was tired. "Malcolm," he said softly. "Can we talk?" Malcolm nodded and handed him a cup of coffee. They sat outside on 2 old chairs. The wind was quiet. The birds didn't sing. "I'm hearing things," the sheriff began. "Bad things. Big things." Malcolm didn't respond. He just waited. Sheriff Beckett rubbed his face. "They're coming for you. Friday night. Maybe more than 10 men. Ropes. Fire. Maybe worse." Malcolm finally looked at him. "And what are you going to do about it, Sheriff?" Beckett paused. "I've got 2 deputies. One scared. One drunk. You think I can stop 10 men in white robes?" Malcolm stayed calm. "You don't need to stop them. Just stand with me. That's all." The sheriff looked away. "Stand with you, and I lose my job. My friends. Maybe my life." Malcolm stood up. "Then don't. But don't come here asking me to run." "I don't run." Sheriff Beckett sighed. "I'm not asking you to run," he said. "I'm offering you a way out. A deal." The deal. Malcolm would leave town for a month. The sheriff would tell the clan he's gone. No harm. No fire. No fight. Malcolm laughed. A man leaves his home to avoid trouble, he comes back to find it's no longer his. The sheriff didn't argue. He just stood up and put on his hat. "Friday night, Malcolm," he said. "Whatever happens, Don't expect help. As the sheriff walked away, Malcolm whispered to himself. I never did. That afternoon, the church doors opened again. Emily Carter returned this time with 3 more people. 2 white women. 1 old white man with a cane. They brought canned food, paint, and blankets. One of the women whispered, "We're not brave like you, but we're here." Malcolm smiled. You don't have to be brave. Just present. In the shadows, the clan watched. Their leader, Charles Dean, stood in the woods, holding a rifle. He's not scared, one man muttered. Charles growled, he will be. But the town was changing. The garage became a meeting spot. Young men came to help install lights and cameras. Old women brought hot meals and sweet tea. Miss Lottie, the diner owner, pinned up a sign in her window. Malcolm stands. We stand. Even the sheriff saw it as he drove by. He didn't stop. But he looked guilty. That night, Jalen ran into Malcolm's garage holding something in his hand. It was a note. Someone had slipped it under his family's door. Stay away from Hayes. Or burn with him. Jalen's hands shook. Malcolm took the note. Crumpled it. Tossed it aside. Then he looked the boy in the eyes. You scared? He asked. Jalen nodded. Malcolm placed a hand on his shoulder. Good. That means you care. But don't let fear stop you. Later, Malcolm drove to the church. He carried something heavy in the back of his truck, a large wooden post. He planted it right outside the door. Then he raised the sign he had made days ago. Fear ends here. He hammered it in with a loud bang, bang, bang. Every strike echoed across town. People came out of their houses to look. Some clapped. Some prayed. Some wept. In a house across town, Charles Dean sat with his men. They think signs and smiles will stop us, he sneered. A younger man asked, what if the news hears about this? Charles grinned. Then let them watch us burn it all. Back in the garage, Malcolm sat down to eat. But his hands were not still. He was building something else now. A small metal box with wires and a camera lens. One more hidden eye. If the clan came Friday night, the world would see. The town of Oak Ridge held its breath. Shadows stretched long across the dirt roads. Street lights flickered. Windows were shut. Curtains drawn. Even the wind felt still. The clan had promised to return tonight. And everyone knew it. But Malcolm Hayes. He didn't hide. He stood outside his garage, arms crossed, wearing a black jacket and his father's bronze star pinned to the front. Beside him stood Jalen, nervous but trying to look brave. Behind them, 3 cameras rolled silently, one in a tree, one on the church roof, one hidden in a toolbox. Malcolm had sent the first tapes to the local news station earlier that day, just in case something happened. He also mailed copies to a civil rights lawyer in Birmingham. He wasn't just waiting. He was ready. At exactly 9:47 p.m., a noise cut through the silence. Engines. Multiple. 5 trucks rolled into town. No license plates. Covered in dust and hate. White robes. Hoods. Torches. And in the front seat of the lead truck, Charles Dean, the clan leader. They stopped just outside Malcolm's garage. The engines cut. The flames lit. 20 men stepped out. Some had bats. Others had ropes. A few held cans of gasoline. The town watched from behind locked doors. Some whispered prayers. Some cried. But they didn't look away. Charles Dean took one step forward and shouted. Last chance, boy. Step aside. Leave town. Or burn with it. Malcolm didn't move. He looked straight at them and said in a calm voice. I was born in fire. Do your worst. Silence. Then Charles threw the first can of gas, splashing it across the garage doors. Another man lit a match. He tossed it. Whoosh. Flames shot up the side of the building. Jalen gasped. Malcolm pulled him back quickly. "Don't panic," he said. Then he reached into his pocket and clicked a button. Suddenly bright white floodlights snapped on all around the garage. And with them sirens. Not police sirens. Broadcast sirens. High-pitched. Loud. And followed by a voice. A recorded message, playing over loudspeakers hidden on the roof. "This is Malcolm Hayes. The KKK is attacking my property. Their faces are on camera. Their voices are recorded. Their crimes are documented. And every second is being broadcast live." The Klan froze. Charles looked around, confused. Then he noticed the camera mounted on the church bell. And another one on a nearby pole. Red lights blinking. Watching everything. Recording everything. Suddenly flashlights from the sheriff's truck lit up the other side of the street. Sheriff Beckett had arrived. He wasn't alone. Behind him stood dozens of townspeople, black and white. Some carried buckets. Some held signs. Some just stood silently with arms crossed. One sign read, "We are not afraid." Another, "The world is watching." Charles growled, "You brought the law." Malcolm stepped forward. "I didn't bring anyone," he said. "They came on their own." Suddenly, Emily Carter stepped from the crowd and pointed a camera phone at the Klan. "You're live on 3 platforms," she shouted. "Keep going if you're proud." One man in a hood looked nervous. Another pulled his hood off and ran back to his truck. Then another. Then 2 more. One shouted, "This ain't what I signed up for." Charles screamed, "Stand your ground." But it was too late. The fire had been put out by locals with buckets. The Klan's trucks were surrounded. And cameras were everywhere. Charles turned to Malcolm one last time. "You think this is over?" Malcolm didn't blink. "I know it's beginning." Charles spat on the ground, then got in his truck. And drove away. The other trucks followed. The fire was out. The Klan was gone. And Malcolm Hayes stood tall, untouched, under the blinking cameras and rising moon. People cheered. Some cried. Miss Lottie hugged Emily. Jalen's mother kissed her son's forehead. Sheriff Beckett walked up to Malcolm and held out his hand. Malcolm stared at it. Then slowly, he shook it. "Thought you wouldn't come," Malcolm said. The sheriff replied, "I almost didn't. But I figured it was time I stood for something." Malcolm nodded. "Then stand tall." That night, news of the event hit local TV. Black mechanic outsmarts KKK in Alabama town. Clips went viral. The world saw the faces of hate, and the strength of one man who wouldn't kneel. The sun rose over Oak Ridge with a golden light the town hadn't seen in years. Smoke still lingered near Malcolm Hayes' garage, but it wasn't from fire. It was from hope burning brighter than fear. The Klan was gone. But what they left behind wasn't ashes. They left behind a movement. That morning, dozens of people gathered outside the garage. Black, white, old, young. They brought brooms, buckets, and fresh paint. Jalen carried a new American flag to replace the one the Klan had burned. Emily brought hot coffee for everyone. Even Sheriff Beckett helped repaint the wall. Someone had written in big black letters, "Courage lives here." Malcolm stood quietly, watching. He didn't say much. He never did. But his eyes told the whole story. Across town, news trucks arrived. Reporters asked questions. Cameras flashed. "Are you a civil rights leader?" one asked. Malcolm shook his head. "I fix engines," he said. The people did the rest. That evening, Malcolm received a call. It was from a state senator in Birmingham. "We saw what you did," the voice said. "You've inspired thousands. Would you speak at the rally next week?" Malcolm paused. "I'm no speaker," he said. The senator replied, "You don't have to speak. Just stand. That's enough." The next Friday, the Klan tried again. Not with fire but with a march. They announced it on local radio. "We will march through Oak Ridge," the message said. "We will remind them who's in charge." But this time, Oak Ridge was ready. That Friday morning, the streets were filled but not with fear. Thousands came from nearby towns. Men and women held signs that read, "We are Oak Ridge. No more hoods. No more hate." Malcolm stood. "So we stand." Even children wore black jackets in Malcolm's honor. Reporters broadcast live across the country. And then it happened. 5 Klan trucks arrived just outside town. They slowed. They saw the crowd. They saw the cameras. And in the center of it all, standing tall in front of his rebuilt garage, was Malcolm Hayes. Wearing his father's bronze star. Silent. Still. Unshaken. One of the Klan members stepped out of his truck. But as soon as his boots hit the ground, cheering erupted. Not for him. But for the people who stood without fear. One truck turned around. Then another. Then another. Within minutes. They were all gone. They never stepped foot in Oak Ridge again. Malcolm walked to the center of the road and planted something into the dirt. It was a sign. One word. Carved in steel. Enough. In the months that followed, Oak Ridge changed. The church became a community center. Malcolm's garage became a safe house for civil rights volunteers. Jalen started writing speeches. He wanted to become a lawyer. Emily opened a food bank that served both black and white families. Even Sheriff Beckett changed. He hired his first black deputy. But Malcolm, he stayed the same. He still fixed engines. Still drank black coffee. Still nodded more than he spoke. But now, when people passed by, they didn't just see a mechanic. They saw the man who made the KKK back down, without raising a fist. One reporter came back months later. He asked, "Mr. Hayes, how did you win?" Malcolm looked at the camera and said, "I didn't win. We just stopped losing." Raised fist. Final scene. A young girl walks up to Malcolm's garage. She's holding her father's hand. She asks, "Are you the man from the TV?" Malcolm smiles gently and kneels down. "No, sweet girl," he says. "I'm the man from this town."